Good evening. Good tea, good weather? Excellent. So we'll have some fun as well while we are trying to talk through things. So we've heard some very interesting and some very, very relevant topics and conversations and opinions through the afternoon. What I'm going to do is try to dig in a little bit deep, right? Try to peel the onion a little bit and say, so yes, the world around us is changing, but what does that mean for us, right? What does that mean for each one of us as an individual and consequently for our end customers and what we need to do to respond to that? Price of onions, very relevant topic in India. If it can make governments collapse, I'm sure it has got something to do with NASDAQ, and we can weave our way into design-led engineering as well. So we'll do some of that stuff. And then really get on to defining, so what is it, right? So what is it that we really need to do? And we as an organization ourselves, GlobalLogic went through this dilemma around 4 to 5 years ago. It's a hot topic in the world today. We ourselves started thinking through it 4 to 5 years ago. We have had to undergo a transformation ourselves in terms of how we delivered solutions to our clients and what we delivered back to them and how they perceived us. So we have undergone a journey on our own. Would share some of those lessons with the group, and then we'll move on from there. Right? How many of us from the banking world in here? Quite a few. So Zinnov team, if I'm dead by the end of the session, you know who to reach out to. Jokes apart, we'll talk through some stuff. So let's look at the world around us and what's really going on here. We have heard about the demography shift, right? We've heard about the baby boomers and the next generation and the digital natives and the millennials. Well, these millennials are at a tipping point. They are no longer the new kids on the block. Right? They are the kids who are defining how we as an organization, how we as an employer, how we as a provider, be us as a bank or as a communications player or as a media player, how do they want to interact with us? They're defining, they're changing the rules of the game, right? It's no longer, it's hip to be I, me, myself. And that's something that, what I like to call, in a marketplace of 1 billion, address the market of 1. Right? And we don't look at it as seriously as we need to at times, saying, hey, you know what, this is okay, this is manageable. But this generation really is at a very, very serious tipping point, inflection point in terms of how they want the world around them to react or behave with them. Explosion of devices. We all grew up with PCs and laptops. As we were young adults, we saw the whole mobile revolution happening. And as this generation is moving ahead, you have wearables coming in. I'm sure a bunch of us over here have smart watches. A bunch of us are going to have smart other gear that we'll start wearing. So the number of touch points with an individual is increasing dramatically. And we might think, hey, how is it relevant for me as a retailer, right? What somebody is doing with their smart watch? Or how is it relevant to me as a bank, as an investment banker, if somebody is wearing a smart watch or wearing a smart something, a smart vest? It does. As we weave through some of these story points, we'll see how it starts to become relevant. The kinds of data we are collecting now, right? We are not just collecting what I call conscious keyed-in data. We are also collecting data that is slightly under the hood. What's happening with a 23-year-old young adult standing in a Tiffany store looking at a beautiful diamond necklace, and if that Fitbit app that she's running on her phone is also connected with the retail app. And by the way, we think of, hey, who on earth would like to connect these apps? But you look at your next generation, you go talk to 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, they're very, very comfortable doing that. They say, you know what, that's what gives me the best of what I want. So the sort of data that we are collecting and how the data is getting collected, right? It's not just coming from devices, it's going to the cloud, but it's coming from all over our physical form, if you will, right? And all of this is leading to a dramatic implosion in data. All of this is leading to an ecosystem, or the need for an ecosystem where we need to interact with our customer with multiple form factors. Right? The sort of data that we need to work through to draw deductions with, multiple sources, multiple formats, Very interesting world. If you look at this chart, what does this tell me? Right? There's a correlation between the price, wholesale price of onions in India and how the Nasdaq behaves. What it's telling me is, Mr. Banker, to get my retirement sorted out, I don't need advice. I just need to go to the neighborhood bhajiwala and figure out what's the price of onions and decide to go long or short. Right? That's the sort of crazy correlations that are coming in. And while this is a humorous example, but if you look at reality, as I said, if you start to look at Mr. X after a workout in the morning makes investment decisions versus what Pandora is doing to the sort of music that we listen to, the kind of correlations and the causality between various data factors dramatically changing. So if you look at what all we just spoke about, we looked at various devices, different kinds of data, and different ways and means of collecting the data, right? That's what's happening in the world around us. It's no longer about building an app for the phone, a web app or a mobile app or a watch app now. It's about creating that ecosystem. And that's what leads us to, so what it really is. What is this design-led engineering? What is it in this new world where all of this stuff is happening around us, right? In very simple terms, the way we look at it at GlobalLogic, it's the user is the center of the universe, right? It's not the technology. We no longer build mobile apps for our clients. We build shopping experiences. We no longer build displays for surgeons running surgeries inside hospitals, right? We build solutions to help them monitor patient vitals while they're performing the surgery without losing context of what's going on inside the physical body that they're operating on, right? It's really putting the user in the center of who is going to be the end consumer of the technology. For a bank, as an example, it's the home loan potential customer. You could be starting a transaction online saying, I'm interested in a mortgage and filling out some details, taking out printouts, signing them for the physical KYC, driving towards office, getting into a branch into an ATM kiosk as an example, putting those documents in a Dropbox, and 3 days later turning up at a branch to finish that transaction. It's that connected ecosystem. It's no longer branch banking and ATM solution and online. We need to start thinking, and it's simple. It sounds very, very simple, but it's surprising how many of us really think about it. How many of us have experienced a bank that allows us to do what I just said? Does it seem far-fetched with today's technology? No. Do we do it? No. Right? So starting to put the user in the center of the universe, if we don't, somebody else will. Look, who knew 5 years ago that the largest cell phone manufacturer in the world is going to be a struggling entity in the next 3 to 4 years? Who's the biggest competitor to automobile manufacturers today? It's Ola and it's Uber. 5 of my friends in the last 3 months have given up both their cars. They say, I don't need cars anymore. Right? So automobile manufacturer competition is coming from software is the brand sort of companies. Right? And why are they succeeding? They're putting the user in the center of the universe, and they're creating solutions that allow them to do things, to meet their goals. Right? And that's an important element for us to address. In a world of billions, address the marketplace of one. We need to be able to address each individual at a time. And those are the corporations that will succeed in the future. I think our friend from Capgemini did speak about the 26% profitability and 46% who have grown. That's going to be the future, right? Those are the firms that are going to survive. Right? Design is also not just about designing the app or the web page or the solution. It's about designing the entire interaction mechanism, a smart energy meter versus the web versus the phone and so on and so forth. It's also about conveying the simplicity and the promise of the brand, right? It's really taking into consideration all of these elements. The definition of design itself is evolving. Branding is as important. The simplicity and the messaging and the accessibility and the usability, all of these factors start to get into design. We still continue to perceive design as look and feel. Those days are gone. Right? Those are the laggards. We need to change, and we need to change fairly rapidly. Right? Why does it become so important? Right? The most innovative companies in the world are using, they have been using for decades design as the center of their universe, right? It's the fulcrum around which their products are designed. And there's a reason why they do that. 26% growth or higher profitability was something that we spoke about. If you look at these metrics on the S&P, 228% outperformance of design-centric companies over not so progressive with design. And these are hard numbers, right? These are not funny onion S&P or funny onion and NASDAQ numbers. Yeah, these are hard numbers of what's happening. Yes, it's slightly skewed because of Apple's performance, but even if you take that away, it's a significant delta. So it's not just concept and air and balloons. You're seeing the reality that's out there, and this gap is going to increase. And by the way, I honestly feel that next time we talk about this in 12 to 24 months, there would be a different set of companies in here. There would be a different set of leaders who would be sitting in here inside this bracket. Okay. Bunch of examples. I'm not going to spend time on that, but not properly done design could have catastrophic failures. Look at, if you go back to the game boxes that we use and to what we are using today, the world's changed. What changed? They had better technology. They had a head start. Everything was going for them. What happened? Right? It's continuing to look at what's changing in the technology world, continuing to look at possibilities and continuing to pull our head out of the sand, if you will. Right? So with that backdrop, we ourselves as an organization, let me talk a little bit about what did we go about doing. So as an organization, we are a fairly strong outsourced engineering firm, global presence, offices in 10 different countries, fantastic, all yada, 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 good stuff. If you look at GlobalLogic 4 years ago, and you can Google stuff, you'd see some things from 4 years ago. What were we perceived as by clients? What were we doing for our clients? We were building products for our clients. We were an outsourced R&D firm. We were an outsourced product development firm. We were all that fun stuff. When we looked at it, we said, hey, you know what? We are just, okay, intelligent, but a provider of labor. That's what we are, right? And we need to evolve. We need to change from that. And over the last 4 or 5 years, what we have done is really gone and focused intensely on building our design capability. So if you look at us today, we have 3 design studios in London, New York, and San Francisco, with extensions in India and in Argentina, in Delhi and in Buenos Aires. And if you ask any one of us at GlobalLogic today as to what do you do, we today build cutting-edge retail shopping experiences. And these experiences work across phones and web and watches and whatnot, and beacons and whatnot, right? We build technology today that helps save lives. If you're a chronic back patient with an implant in your back, especially in North America and in certain parts of Europe, more than 90% probability you've been touched by GlobalLogic engineering. Our customers no longer come to us for pure technology solutions. They come to us for helping us solve their own business problems. We work with them from design down to the actual engineering. So we have ourselves moved up the value chain by establishing this design presence. And that's the same thing that's going to come into relevance for every one of the enterprises out there. If we need to work through and survive and be of value as the time goes by, our engineering, our IT world has to start becoming design-led. Right? The user needs to be the king or the queen, if you will. To give you an example of the kind of things that people come to us with. So this is one of the large healthcare manufacturers. Somebody did from that firm ask a question a little while back. And they came to us with, when there's a surgeon inside a surgery and they have to monitor the patient vitals. All of us have seen this in the movies, right? Beep, beep, there's a vitals monitor somewhere and the surgeon's cutting open, and then they have to look up and then come back. That's a very expensive transaction for a surgeon. They're losing context of what they're doing to monitor those vitals and come back. So this firm came to us with saying, how do we solve this dilemma? How do we solve that problem? And we started on this with putting the surgeon in the middle of the solution. We didn't start with, hey, why don't we build a nice, cool iPad app that the surgeon can plonk on the side of the surgical table and be able to look at it there, right? we started to look at it with the surgeon in the center and said, so what all is the surgeon wearing at that time? Where are all the possibilities? And then went about, hey, you know what? Surgeons are very comfortable wearing a headband on which the light is plonked. Why not build a side display where the surgeon can just glance up and within the context of what they're doing, figure out the patient vitals over a Bluetooth connection? And I think the TI team spoke about low power connections and so on and so forth, hooked up with the medical display systems and brought the data to the surgeon right where they were without having them switch their context. Right? And this is now hitting the assembly line. So that's the sort of stuff that's happening out there. Right? This is the actual prototype that finally got used and approved, and a bunch of surgeons who used it for surgeries for a couple of weeks before they decided, yeah, this is something that works. This is exactly what we need. The only reason we were able to do this was because we put the surgeon in the middle. We didn't think technology first. We thought the surgeon first, the user first, and then figured out what technology to use, what plastics, what chips, and what programming, and so on and so forth. Right? Last chart. Big retail store in the US had a phone app for years. Challenge, not a lot of adoption, right? Not a lot's going on with what they were doing. And again, they came to us and said, hey, you know what? We need to improve our results. We need to improve our adoption rate. And we did the same thing. We didn't look at it as rebuilding their mobile app. We said, hey, how do we look at your customer and create an experience that is integrated? That's a key word, integrated between the physical world, which is the store, and what's happening on the web, and what's happening on their handhelds, and on their watches, and with the beacons that are placed in the physical store. So we created a whole connected solution. Again, fundamental point, we put the end user, the customer, in the middle and started to build the story around that customer. And the moment we did that, technology took a back seat. Once we had the story sorted out, how does this customer become aware of the product, and what happens when they walk into a store, and what happens when they're in the proximity of an aisle and with the past data? Once we started to build those stories out, it was very easy to then apply technology to that solution. End result, you can Google this up. Second most downloaded app on the Apple Store, with downloads more than 1 million category. Phenomenal success, 864% plus rise in the business that's happening through this solution. And by the way, it's not something that's cannibalizing their physical store business. It's something that's additive to a fairly large extent. And no rocket science. The only reason why we were able to do it was put the user in the middle, start with the design, and then start to build technology around it. I think that's what the future is going to be like, because the future is no longer about form factor. Future is about hundreds of different ways of interaction for the user. Future is about hundreds of different data formats and hundreds of different data points coming together. It's about those analytics. And unless and until we put these elements together, I think history is going to be rewritten about who survives and who does not. Right? Thank you.